Well, a common view in psychology, not our view, I think, is that the true subject matter of psychology is some inner process of thought that lies behind behavior. And behavior is often thought of as a mere symptom, almost a trivial byproduct of this inner thinking process. What do you make then of that inner-outer distinction?
Well, I think the reason that we now question the inner thing, the reason there's been a behavioristic revolution, is that we now know more about the behavior. Up until 1913, at least, no one seriously said that you can forget about these internal things and look at the behavior. But that was only possible because people had begun to study behavior. Now, behaviorism didn't amount to much for 25 years because we didn't know much about it, about what people do. Rats ran through mazes and dogs salivated the bells and whatnot. But there was no real science of the behavioral antecedents of behavior, of the environmental antecedents of behavior. Once they had been discovered and very carefully worked out, there was something else to explain what we do in addition to what we're feeling. And then you realize that once you have a science of behavior which establishes the role of the environment, two sciences really, ethology, the role of natural selection, and experimental analysis of behavior is the role of the environment of the individual through operant conditioning. Once you have that science, then there's less need to look inside for a cause, and eventually you can simply say there's no need at all, because what is inside is the product of the history. So that what happens is, as I grew up as a baby and a child and an adult, was that my body was slowly changed by contingency to reinforcement. It remained a body produced by natural selection. And that as soon as we understand the environmental sources of what I do all the way along, we don't need to bother about how it feels when I'm doing it. But what philosophers have done for 2,500 years at least is to try to look more and more closely at what they feel or what they see introspectively. And of course they never have got anywhere. And Plato is still taught today in departments of philosophy, you see, 2,500 years later. And moreover, the cognitive psychology has given up on introspection. The psychology in general has. Do you find a psychologist sitting around observing mental life anymore? No. The cognitive processes are inferences, which you establish by hypotheses and inferences and so on. I don't know of a single psychologist who sits around and watches a stream of consciousness or is a trained observer in the Wundtian tradition, though the behavioristic attack on introspection has been totally successful. Introspection is now out as a process of science. It's still there with philosophy, and they can have it, and they will. But the good philosophers, I would say someone like Bertrand Russell, I think, realizes that you can't get much out of introspection, although it's interesting to look at yourself when you're thinking, but you've got eventually to get back to physical explanation.